Good morning, everyone.
Good
How's
morning.
everyone doing?
We're great. How are you?
Good. So imagine suffering with constant shortness of breath and chronic fatigue on a regular basis. Your physician diagnoses you with anemia, which is a common disorder, and you're advised to take iron supplements and consume a diet with iron-enriched food. However, over time, your symptoms don't improve but persist. The reason why is because you were misdiagnosed. You then come to find out that you inherited a rare blood disorder called thalassemia, in which the body makes less or abnormal hemoglobin, resulting in the destruction of red blood cells. The scenario I just presented you with happened to me. I have been living with thalassemia my whole life. I have done a vast amount of research on this topic and can confidently inform you of this incurable blood disorder. According to my survey results stated on SurveyMonkey.com show that 85% of you do not know what thalassemia is. This complex but yet rare blood disorder has an extensive amount of information. However, my goal is to break down the information in a way that you will grasp a complete understanding of the disorder. Thalassemia is broken into two categories, alpha and beta thalassemia, in which both are needed to make normal hemoglobin. Today, I will be primarily informing you of beta thalassemia, which is the most common. This is a genetic disorder inherited from a person's parents and originates in several parts of the world. There is no cure for thalassemia, however, treatment options are available based on type and severity. I would like to start by explaining first in detail what exactly thalassemia is and break down the two main points. My results from SurveyMonkey.com show that 57% of you were correct that thalassemia is a blood disorder. It actually causes your body to make less or abnormal hemoglobin. This is actually what it looks like, as you can see the difference. This is what it looks like under a microscope. If you aren't already aware, or just as a reminder for some, hemoglobin is made up of alpha and beta globin chains, which are protein red molecules that carry oxygen from the lungs throughout the body, essentially making breathing easy. An article from WebMD.com titled Thalassemia Topic Overview states that the most common form of thalassemia is beta thalassemia, which affects the beta component in your hemoglobin, as I just mentioned. Beta thalassemia minor, being the first type, occurs when one beta component does not work properly, and beta thalassemia major, being the second type, occurs when both components do not work properly, ultimately making defective hemoglobin. Unfortunately, both can result in anemia. Anemia, which is when you have low amounts of red blood cells in the body, causing persistent symptoms. According to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, published November 21st, 2016, states common symptoms of beta thalassemia include shortness of breath, fatigue, dizziness, fast heartbeat, leg cramps, difficulty concentrating, and pale skin due to the lack of oxygen being delivered throughout the body. Now that I have explained what thalassemia is, and broke down the two most common components of this blood disorder, I would like to inform you of how this disorder is inherited and who can be affected by this. As I mentioned earlier, I have the thalassemia trait, which was inherited from my grandmother, passed to my mother, then to me. An article from thalassemia.org titled, Who Carries the Thalassemia Trait states that it is estimated over 2 million people in the United States carry the genetic trait for thalassemia. This blood disorder is caused by mutations in the DNA of cells that make hemoglobin. The mutations associated with thalassemia are passed from parents to children. An article from MedicineNet.com titled Beta Thalassemia explains that starting at birth, beta thalassemia major, the one affecting both components, begins with anemia within the first few months after birth. It then gets progressively worse, causing infants to not thrive properly, resulting in growing and feeding problems due to lack of oxygen. In addition, the beta thalassemia trait is most commonly found in people with ancestry including Mediterranean, Italian, Greek, North African, Middle Eastern, Indian, Chinese, and Southeast Asia. We live in such a culturally diverse country as many couples and marriages are of different ethnic backgrounds. Therefore, the trait for thalassemia is found in people with no obvious ethnic connections to the disorder, stated from thalassemia.org, titled, "I have a thalassemia trait." Even though this disorder originated in different parts of the Mediterranean, clearly you can see its migration into the United States. Unfortunately, there is no cure for this complex disorder. However, treatment options are always available. Depending on type and severity, treatment options are available to those with different types of thalassemia after a proper diagnosis is made. A person with a severe form of thalassemia with less hemoglobin in the body, the more severe the anemia may be. This can be detected with a blood sample looking for anemia, abnormal hemoglobin, and misshapen red blood cells under a microscope. The one way to treat the anemia that developed from the thalassemia is to provide the body with red blood cells to carry oxygen throughout the body. A November 21st, 2016 article from the Center for Disease Control and Prevention explained that this can be done through a blood transfusion, which is when you receive blood through a small plastic tube inserted into one of your blood vessels. Some may need regular blood transfusion because their body makes such low amounts of hemoglobin. According to an article from medicalnews.com published May 15, 2017 by Christian Nordvist, states that scientists are investigating genetic techniques to treat thalassemia, which may include inserting a normal beta-globin gene into the patient's bone marrow, or using a drug to reactivate the genes that produce fetal hemoglobin. Fetal hemoglobin just meaning the main transport of oxygen in the human fetus. In an article published November 21st, 2016 from cdc.gov, explained that people with thalassemia that is not as severe still require blood transfusions at times, such as when infection or illness is present. Most individuals with less severity can manage with supplements such as folic acid, which will help develop red blood cells. Clearly, you can see that thalassemia is a very complex blood disorder. Throughout the information I provided you, I mentioned anemia quite often. I would like to reiterate that thalassemia is not the same as anemia. However, thalassemia can lead to it. For this reason, quite often thalassemia becomes overlooked and is mistaken for anemia when lab work and other routine tests are done. If the symptoms I explained earlier seem too familiar, don't ignore them, as you too could be misdiagnosed. I hope the information I provided you helps you grasp an understanding of what thalassemia is, where it comes from, and that even though there is no cure, treatment options are always available.